Hi, Kathy here from Kathy's Cute Creations. I'm going to show you how to do the top and this side here of the barn quilt that stays the same every month. Some more new fabric that I'm going to use for my barn quilt. This is called Lemon Twist, and it's from Kansas. It's by Kansas Studio from Benatar. It is a layer cake. That's a 10 by 10 inch. These are the colors that are in this package, which I really like. Alright, here is all the fabric cut out already. I'm going to give you the sizes. I've labeled everything, so I have A through H, and I've got it on the right hand side. So this fabric here is A. The size is 3.5 by 5.5. That's a rectangle. B and F are the exact same sizes, so they are 3.5 inch squares. To make this top across the barn square, you need 1 A, 2 of B, 1 of C, and the dimensions for C and G are the same. It is a 2.5 by 4.5 rectangle. D is you need 1 piece. It's 1.5 by 12.5, and as you note, the yellow is not as long as the gray and white stripe, but I'm going to put a seam in it because when you build your barn across the top, there will be a seam for the side to come down. You'll see it here when I do it. And then E, you need 1, and it's 3.5 by 4.5. And then H is the last block, and it is a 4.5 inch square. It's the actual, I call it the door. So let me take my pieces over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to show you how to put this top portion and the side portion together. Alright, these are my fabric B. The first thing that the directions tell you is they want you to flip it over to the wrong side, and they want you to mark it diagonally. I am using a friction pin. And what I do is I usually put my pin on the corner, so I've got it. Then I put my ruler up against it because you have to allow for the pin right here, otherwise it'll be off center. Then I go to the other end, do the same thing, and then I slowly come down. Doesn't need to be dark, it just needs to be so that you can see it, so that you can sew along it. And do it to both pieces. You can barely see it. You're putting F, which I chose these colors right here for F, and you're going to put them right sides together. You're going to put the part that you've gone and put your mark on, you're going to face that up so you can see where to sew it. Now you want to sew this together, and if you have a problem with the very beginning point on your sewing machine, you can do what I do. I go down off of the fabric. Go ahead and I'll show you. The fabric's coming out the other end to give you an idea. I get off that corner. Do that. I just go on down. You don't have the circle plate on your machine. You'll have the one that has a little bit of a line in it, and that's why your fabric has a tendency to want to go down in it. So just come off. You don't need to back up. Go ahead and cut your thread. Go around. What I do is put the thread back into the thread that's already been sewn on there. I come off the other edge. This way you can avoid your fabric from trying to get down inside the little hole in your sewing machine. And then just come right off of that. That's all there is to it. Now we're going to take our 2 F's. We're going to mark on the back of them like we did our B's. We're going to take our A fabric, and we're going to sew our F on each end of that. Keep this in mind. After you've marked it, you want it to go from the corner to the bottom of the fabric. And again, if you're uncomfortable at the corner, bring it down a little bit. And let's start there. And then again, come back to the other side, slowly put your needle down into the fabric that you've already sewn. That locks it into place. Therefore, you don't need to be locking it. And then sew off the fabric. There you go. And it will look like this. Just like that. Alright. Now we're going to go ahead, cut this off, discard it, and then I'll show you when I get back with this side pinned so that you'll be sure and pin it the correct way. After we're finished, we've opened it up. Now we're going to take our fabric, and this time, instead of going from the corner down, which is what we did the first time, we're going to put our fabric on the edge here, if I can get my fabric on there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go from the top up here down to the bottom. Pinned, we're going to sew this. Now because this is actually, when I start at the corner, that will not be eaten up by my sewing machine, for lack of a better word. So you can go ahead and start in the corner. It will not make a difference. It shouldn't go down inside your machine. And then just slowly go to the other end. This is what your block should look like. Remember, these are the F's. This is the A. Now, this measurement should be 3.5 by 5.5. Now, moving on to the next one. With the right sides together, we're going to layer fabric B with fabric E. Now, remember, fabric B was this same color. This is our fabric B. Let me move this one here. And our fabric E is this color. And what we're doing, because remember you marked your B already, because you did that at the very beginning. Put the right sides together. And we're going from the top down, so it won't affect our corner again. We're going to sew these two pieces together. And if you find that when you lay your two pieces of fabric together, now of course I've ironed all of this before I started, because you want to do that so that it's all flat for you. But if it gets to the point where you're starting to lay it on and all of a sudden this piece is just a little bit, I mean when I say a little bit, if you can look at that right there, a little bit off like that, then take this piece that's off, that's a little bit too short, and use your spray starch on it. I use the press, the Best Press. And that will make this a little bit bigger to fit that. Also, if you get finished with your block and it's just a scant too small, you can do the same thing. You can press that block or press that section, okay, to get it to fit. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut this, discard this piece, and I'll be right back. Now this piece should measure 3.5 by 4.5. Next thing we're going to sew together is our pieces G and C. These are the two that I have chose. You're going to put them right sides together and you're going to sew them together. They don't need to be marked. Make sure that if you're using white on white, that is facing down when you go to put the two pieces together. And let's sew that. Keeping it at 1/4 inch. Do not run over any of your pins. You do not want to break your sewing machine. I'm going to go ahead and iron it. And it will look like that. This is G and this is C. Let me go iron it real quick. It looks like when it's finished, and you're going to take your letter H and you're going to add the two together like this. Sew that together. Now when I pinned, before I pinned, I went ahead and I took H, which is this bottom square, and I folded it in half to get the seam line so that I would make sure it matched up. Just in case it's too big on one side or the other, that'll come out, that will make it come out centered. This way, if you've cut it too long, you'll now have it to fit. You can line it up other ways. That's just the way that I do it. to take this over to the ironing board, and you're going to want to iron that open. And then the measurements of this, when it's finished, will be the 4.5, and it will be 12.5 inches. I mean, excuse me, 12.5. It will be 8.5 inches long. So when you've got this one all ironed, that's the way this one looks. Now what we're going to do is we're going to assemble the top. You're going to take your first square you did, and you're going to attach it to the second. And you have one seam that needs to be nestled. So go ahead and pin this end and that end. And then I'm going to show you how to sew it. Alright, after you get it pinned, I start from, you can start on either side, but I don't want to start where this seam is nestled because that's too thick for me. So I'm going to go to the other end, and I'm going to start from that end. And if you're the kind of person that gets confused by your fabric color choices, for example, these choices that I've used are very confusing. If you don't have them numbered, labeled, you can always take a picture with your telephone. That's the way the first one's going to look. Now before I even iron it, I'm going to attach the next one. And what I'm keeping in mind when I'm looking at mine is that I wanted these two to be the same kind of fabric. I wanted these two to be the same kind of fabric. That's how I'm lining mine up. And I won't have any seams to match on this one because the seam is down here and it's up in the corner. So go ahead and I'll get this pinned. Let's put it together. Now it looks like that. I'm going to take it over to the ironing board and iron it, and I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's laying flat. Alright, there it is laid out. And now what you want to do is you want to make sure that the length of this is 12.5 inches. Now what we're going to do next, you have one more part to do, and you're going to take your number D fabric, which is this here, and what I'm going to do, remember I made a comment when I first cut it out that it was too short, but since there's a seam here and there's a seam here, I can take two pieces of this fabric, sew it together, and meet it where the seam is at, since it's the exact same fabric. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put these two pieces together, then I'm going to sew them to this. So let me sew this together, and then I'll pin this, and I'll show you what I'm doing. Here it is, all laid out, ready to be sewn. And I went ahead and left it a little long. And here's where you have a choice to either open up this seam or put it sideways to one side. I went ahead and did to one side. You could open up both your seams if you had wanted to. Your preference. And I'm coming to the end of it. There we go, right off the edge. And when you turn it up or down, however you want to say it, here's the seam right here. Up a little bit. See the seam right there? Well, after I ironed it, I got to thinking maybe you'd like to see how it gets cut off on the ends after you've sewn something on that's too long. So I thought I'd go ahead and show you. So I turn it upside down. Let's see if you can see that right there. And this corner here is the one I'm going to work with first. I take my ruler and I lay it on the edge of my fabric. Then I have the part that I'm going to cut off sticking out. And then I just cut it straight off. And then it matches the edge of that. When I come over here, I'll do the same thing. Make sure it's in the camera. Because what you're doing is when you're putting your ruler down here, you're squaring it up. So that's how you know you can get it straight, this fabric right here, and it won't be crooked. And then you cut it off, and that's it. And then you'll iron it open. Alright, there it is all done. Now normally I would have gone ahead and I would have ironed my seam to this darker side, but it makes for so much bulk because of all these intersections right here. So I believe that this yellow can handle, it's not, you can't see through it, so it is fine. You just have to decide that when you're making your own. So there it is, all complete. And then when I make the bottom, oh, here's the top. I mean the side. So when I get finished making the inside section, which will be my next video, I'll put it together. But I did want to show you how to just do the top. Well, that's it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Here's the little top of the barn block. So if you want to do just your tops and your side, here's the side, because you know you have to wait till the other part gets made before you put these two together. And if you want to do all your tops, you've got 12 of these that you can do and get them all done ahead of time if you're making them different, like this one. I did not want to make them all the same, so I'm just making a variety of them. I'm making all my tops, and then I'll just add all the body parts later. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and then click that little bell so when I put up another one you'll be notified. And if you've got a comment, by all means make a comment if you don't understand anything that I've done. So till next time, bye bye.